So we must do two things, two great things together, to encompass that enormous new view that lies before us, but to encompass it within the framework of science, to see it within the whole categorical framework of science, and to see that these two are not separate, but that they are wedded. The bigness of the idea, the newness of the idea, the greatness of it is one with the structure of science, the structure of being itself. Well, this word matrix appears to be a great I am presentation, a great presentation of the I am, a great statement of the I am. We don't only feel this in the first vertical, which of course is the vertical of the Word and which brings out the self-declaration of God, but somehow that first vertical sets a big tone in a way, such that the other verticals pick that up, and the whole matrix seems to be a great statement of the I am. What the I am is, what the I am looks like, how it is translated into the language of the level of Christian Science. So the array of that matrix is the full array of I amness. You can feel that if we go through those values again. Let's go through them again. And I want you to notice something further as we go through it now. That what is that matrix saying it is? What is the I am? First, you see that in the I index, we have that I am saying primarily, I am the Word, Christ, Christianity, and science. You see that? Yeah. I am Word, Christ, Christianity, science. Look at this. I am Word, Christ, Christianity, science. How can we get that feel? I'm not getting it across, I can tell, but you see that if you look at the first value of the word in the I index, it is as though that I am is saying, I am declaring myself as what I am. That's the word. I am declaring myself as what I am. And then what is that I am that I am? Word, Christ, Christianity, science. Then the Christ comes in and says, I am translating myself as what I am. But primarily, what is that? Word, Christ, Christianity, science. Then the Christianity value comes in. I am reflecting myself as what I am. What am I? Word, Christ, Christianity, science. And only secondarily do the synonyms come in to show that. To show that the I am, that infinite one I am, is a calculus, is the calculus. So we come to the fourth vertical to science. I am interpreting myself as what I am. Interpreting myself as what? What am I? Word, Christ, Christianity, and science. So the whole of the self-declaration of the Word is the calculus. The whole of the self-translation of God as the Christ is the calculus. The whole of the self-reflection of God, God's own infinite self-reflection, is the calculus. Primarily. This is the primarily. And the whole self-interpretation of God as science is the calculus. See that? Then we come to the J index. And that I am says, and I am the creative basis. What is the creative basis? Word, Christ, Christianity, science. I am the Christ selfhood. Then we have to see that I am of the Christ selfhood, that infinite ability of being to bring out all of its specifics, its full individualization of its individuality, is fundamentally the bringing out of the Word, Christ, Christianity, and science. And so with the pure demonstration, the I am pure demonstration. The I am is pure demonstration. I am the pure demonstration. What demonstration? Word, Christ, Christianity, and science. That's the only demonstration, that's primarily the demonstration that we make. Primarily the pure demonstration is the calculus. Primarily the creative basis is the calculus. Primarily the Christ selfhood is the calculus. Primarily that pure demonstration is the calculus, and the God being is the calculus. See that? So the synonyms come in to make that happen. Because the 7 and the 4 can never be separated from each other. What is it that is being calculated by the calculus? It's the whole nature of God, isn't it? The whole nature of God. Those 7, the 7 and the 4, they can't be divided. They're inseparable. And so you see that there's as we come into the 7,000-year period, there is a great shift to the calculus. And one feels that in one's own development, that for years and years and years and years, everything was focused on the 7, on what the 7 were, on what the ideas of the 7 are, 7 this, 7 that, 7, 7, 7, with hardly knowing anything about the 4. At least that was my experience, to know hardly anything, only touches here and there about what the 4 is. But all of a sudden, somewhere in that development, the 4 began to assert themselves, began to come in more and more and more. And so one feels that more and more and more, that the 4 of the calculus comes in. And what happens at the conclusion of the 7 days? Thought accepts the divine infinite calculus, you see. That's where the 7 are leading, to the acceptance of the four, of the divine infinite calculus. Well, this matrix we have called the word matrix. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was what? With God. The Word was with God. In the beginning was the Word. But what is the Word that we are talking about? And I want to perhaps have a mini hypothesis now that I put in at this point for you to weigh and to consider. Because if we ask, well, what is that word if we call this the word matrix? It isn't the word in the sense that we have with the other matrices, such as the Christ matrix, the Christianity matrix, the Christian Science matrix. It isn't the word matrix in that sense. In fact, there may be another matrix that we have not found yet or become aware of yet. There may be another word matrix that would complement and complete the other three matrices. I don't know. It may be at the beginning of the Bible. But when we speak of this matrix as the word matrix, what do we mean? Do we mean the seven? Do we mean the creative order? Is this the matrix of the creative order? No. This matrix is something more. It's something more. More than our ordinary sense of what the word order is. Isn't it? Yeah. So I would offer to you the following possibility, that this word matrix may be the matrix of that word of which John speaks, St. John, the Logos word. What is the Logos? What do we mean by Logos? You know that that's a term that has itself a great history, a great evolution. It goes back again to the period of the Greeks in Greek philosophy and develops from Heraclitus through the Stoics up to Philo and Plotinus. Is that right? Do you know, Chris? And so there's a whole development of that, even up to, I think Philo was the one that more or less wed the Hebrew modes of thought with the Greek concepts and thus brought that term logos into the picture such that John could pick it up and use it in a very definite way. But the whole meaning of that term logos is a meaning that has evolved. It has many beautiful aspects to it. Heraclitus, for instance, would say that the logos is that which governs all things, yet is also something we encounter every day. That logos comes from the Greek verb lego, meaning to say. The earliest meaning was connected discourse, argument, rational principle, reason. Argument. You know what argument is? Yeah. Let's see. Connected discourse, argument, rational principle, reason. Do you know what is meant by argument? Do you know that this is a something in logic? You see, logic comes from logos, from reason. argument is not something that you have with someone when you disagree necessarily, but it is a logical form, a form of reasoning, a way of reasoning. Syllogism, for instance, is a logical argument. You have deductive arguments and inductive arguments, in deductive logic and inductive logic. So here they say that argument is meant by logos. In the 3rd century, you had the Stoics who said that the logos is the immanent ordering principle of the universe, that it is nature's overall rational structure. The logos is that which denotes reason or order in words or things, such as in discourse, in definition, in formula, in principle. In its most important sense in philosophy, it refers to a cosmic reason which gives order and intelligibility to the world. It's the reason in man that regulates all physical processes and is the source of all human law. The creative source of cosmic unity and perfection, containing within itself a multitude of intelligible and purposive forms operating in the world. As regulating all things, the logos is that which regulates all things, as directing all things toward the good, and as the ordered course of events. Logos is nature. And Philo, then, I told you about, was coming in with that connecting up of the Greek concepts with the Hebrew concepts, so that the logos, according to the Dictionary of Philosophy, the logos becomes the immaterial instrument and agency through which the creative activity of the transcendent God is exerted upon the world. So that in Christian philosophy, and you know that there was a Christian philosophy, we don't know much about that. It's something that needs to be investigated more. I think that Christian philosophy, that period of Christian philosophy. In Christian philosophy, the Logos becomes the second person in the Trinity, the Christ. Or the calculus. And in Christian philosophy, the Logos becomes the second person of the Trinity, and its functions are identified with the creative, illuminating, and redemptive work of Christ Jesus. But I fall back on Max Kepler's work with the prologue to St. John, when he told us about that Logos. And do you remember that he equated it with the calculus? It's the calculus. This is my mini hypothesis that perhaps the word that we're speaking about here is the Logos word, the calculus word. Yes, okay. You see that John said what? He said that in the beginning was the Word. And when you look into the commentaries and the scholarly researches that have been done in respect to that prologue, you find that that rendering in the beginning is the same rendering that we have at the beginning of the Bible, in the beginning God. And that term beginning is not the beginning that we think of, but it means that, as Mrs. Eddy says, the infinite has no beginning, but this word is meant to signify the only. So that, as though to say, in principle, the calculus. In principle, the calculus has always been. When John uses the term was, the verb was, they say that this was is not the was as we would think of it, but it means the pre-existence of the word, or logos. The pre-existence of the logos in eternity, the timeless sense of the logos. So you see that he begins that in the beginning was the Word. We could say, in principle, the calculus has always been. The calculus has always been. And the Word was with God. Again, the was must be retranslated to what it actually means, that sense of pre-existence in eternity. So the calculus has always been with God. And with apparently means that it has presence and relationship to God. So that the calculus has always been in its principle. It's always been related to God. Present with God. It's that which is present with God in its principle. And the calculus, or he says, and the logos, and the Word was God. Again, the was is the pre-existence. So, and the calculus has eternally been God, is eternally God. And then he goes on, the same, excuse me, I have to get the text right. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him. It's as though you feel a descent in the whole thing, as though we have started from the standpoint of science itself, that in principle the calculus is. And the calculus has always been present with, related to God, with God, in principle. Is this a touch of divine science, perhaps? Again, and I don't know, I don't want to say hard and fast what these are, but we'll just feel out what we can. And the calculus, I'm sorry, I'm already calling logos calculus, I can't help it. let's see, we said, and the Word was God, you see, is the calculus has eternally been, and then they say that this means of the same nature and attributes of God. Now this, I don't know, has perhaps a touch of divine science, or if we look at that nature and attributes, if we think of it in terms of ideas, it may have a touch of absolute Christian Science. I wouldn't want to say conclusively at this point. I would want to do more research on this prologue. But then it goes on, all things were made by him. You hear absolute Christian Science coming in. In other words, all things are made by the calculus. And without him was not anything made that was made. Without the calculus was not anything made that was made. Nothing is made, nothing is created, nothing is brought forth except it be brought forth by the calculus. You feel there a touch of the equipollence, at least I do. Listen to it again. All things were made by the calculus. Without the calculus was not anything made that was made. But it's the equipollence of God with a touch of absolute Christian Science. Because there isn't really anything negative there. Did you hear it? And yet you feel it is saying the same thing in two different ways, huh? It's taking in the possibility that the listener may think that there's something that has been made by something that other than the calculus. And then to Christian Science, perhaps, that in him was life, in the calculus is life. I guess that life is it's the same was, that is that pre-existence, that ever-eternal existency of being. That's the life in the calculus. But it says, and the life was the light of men. It's the light of men. And so you get really a feeling that the calculus comes to shed light, to bring light, really to bring that infinite light that gives us the way of life, the way of evolution. Calculus does that very much in the word vertical, as we will see. And then another touch of equipollence, but this time from the standpoint of Christian Science. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehendeth it not. The darkness comprehends the light not. So that, in other words, right where you think there is darkness, that's light. That's the light of the calculus. That's the working of the calculus. So that is my mini hypothesis that perhaps we have the word matrix after all, but from a completely a different standpoint than we had thought of it before, as the calculus itself. Because we have what? The calculus in divine science and the calculus in absolute Christian science, bringing forth the calculus in Christian science. That's all the calculus we know of. We know any other calculus, any other level that we haven't got somehow pictured here in this matrix. Do you follow me?